I had Melodyne, just a cappella versions of these artists. We could get to the exact number, what settings they used on the autotunes for their song. The autotune is this long, exactly. I put down every single person, whoever left a comment about a suggestion of an artist here. The house effect is practically something that's known as making two sounds sound like one because they're so close.
Skirt skirt test my luck like a four-leaf clover.
And this is Ofaygo on Titan, so let's hear how this sounds. We're going to do speed and depth, so that's how tight to the note the autotune is linked and how fast between the notes the autotune will skip and lock onto a new note. The start of this one, it ends at about 40 to 50% of the way before it locks onto a new note, so I know that's about half of a 24th of a second block, which makes it around 20 milliseconds, 21 milliseconds for Ofaygo's autotune. The depth we could see by going and just eyeballing the shape of the actual note to see how linked on to the pitch it looked. Guaranteed that this is between a 60 and 80% depth for Ofaygo's autotune. So those are Ofaygo's autotune numbers, and I'll keep that on the screen when we dive into just the mixing of how the vocals sound. I don't know how this happened, but the mixing from Quando Rondo and Ofaygo is like the exact same thing. It's weird. With the exception of ad-libs, Quando Rondo and Ofaygo both do exactly the opposite of what Joji and Lil Skies do. They boost the high end and cut the low end a bunch. You've seen me go over this on the channel before, but it's so clear in this case, and you could really increase the quality sound of your mic if you go for this type. If you're having vocals right now that don't sound good and they don't sound clear and there's something like missing, it's just like this hit, it's this like punch, it's this area, it's kind of like a soul, it's just kind of it. And you can't really explain it. It's kind of like you're in their throat almost. It sounds super close and good. It's probably 7K or 10K. I'll just grab those moves and EQs and boost them a bunch, always making sure I listen to it so I don't overdo it, but pay very close attention to that section. Ofaygo also has that blue facey off rhythm kind of thing sometimes, especially in this song. Every single vocal that I'm going to mention here, obviously the performance is the biggest thing. Let's get on to things that I haven't said on this channel before. There's doubles in here and they're really cool, and you could achieve it with this Haas effect vocal thing. What I would do to make it the easiest and the cleanest sounding is to double take the lines that you want to double, maybe even the entire thing twice again if you want to. Go into a heavy auto tune with like the speeds and the depths all the way up, and then you do the thing that I'm talking about with width, where you double take that track, shift one track over slightly in time, and then hard pan them left and right.
I get what I want, but you know I'm a psycho, running through the blood, carrying my light code. Money isn't much, moving like a Michael, rumble with the bugs. I'm a motherfucking kite dog. I get what I want.
This will make the signal slightly different in both ears, and because you double taked it, it'll separate itself from the main vocal as well. The house effect is practically something that's known as making two sounds sound like one because they're so close in time. You can see this effect if you see me just snapping my fingers. That sounded like one snap, right? Obviously. I mean, like, that was one snap and you saw it. But it was actually two that I laid over after this video in the editing. There were two snaps there, and because they were less than 20 or 30 milliseconds apart, you heard it let's go from that fast to slower. And then when you see us cross the barrier of 20 to 30 milliseconds, you'll hear the two snaps separate. There you go. That's why the lowest range of human hearing is 20 to 30 hertz, 20 or 30 times a second. Because if it's any lower than that, the individual waves are going to be perceived by us as different events. But if a wave oscillation is faster than 20 or 30 milliseconds, we hear it as a note. We take advantage of this exactly when we come into this Haas effect in the program. We take two signals, and by slightly shifting them, making them faster than 20 or 30 milliseconds apart, we're going to see these two sounds lock up together. And if you have the two sides pan hard left and hard right, we're going to have one instrument sound that is across the entire stereo spectrum. It makes the whole sound wider.
Nowadays I'm too cool for a girlfriend.
There's a reason why people who commented to do Lil Skies wants the auto-tune for him to be done as well, because it is a super, super unique auto-tune sound, and we could see exactly why here. The reason you hear it so much is because I think there's unintentional notes being played by the auto-tune, but it gives it that warbly kind of sound. Even when he'll say like, yeah, I heard in, just when he said yeah in Light Beam one time, there was notes that auto-tune was assigning. That's indication of a huge depth number. Half to a quarter of the size was a little bit shorter than like half of one of these 1/24th blocks. So Lil Skies 18 milliseconds was the speed exactly that I got. You know, anywhere from 10 to 30 would sound exactly the same as well. And then the depth obviously has to be super, super high, but we could see that. I mean, just look at this note that comes up right here. It's like he just naturally swooped into that note right there. Like when he recorded it, it naturally went from this place to this place, and it linked it from this note and then shot it back up and linked to that note, linked it and shot it back up to that note. It's like a staircase because it's linking on different notes as he's ascending. So it's totally why Lil Skies has that auto-tune sound. I would really suggest, if you're doing a Lil Skies like thing, to go, if you're doing this for free, to the Soundtrap auto-tune, or just have a high quality auto-tune sound that you could have. Lil Skies is up there. Let's go into just his mixing. Lil Skies has the most unique rap vocal sound that I've heard, maybe, I mean, like, of modern rap sounds, like, ever. Very, very different in one key way, and you know it if you've heard it. He takes this low end to his vocal and just keeps it there, and a lot of people cut that stuff because it's muddy, but he doesn't, and it sounds brilliant. What I hear when I hear Lil Skies vocal is 100 to maybe 500 at the most, really staying there and present. And I think it's why a lot of old heads don't like modern rap sounds. They don't think it sounds natural because you're leaving out this rich bottom, because everything else is supposed to hit hard, and the 808 and the kick and the snare all has low mid information, and the fundamental of your pluck in the back and the fundamentals of your vocals are all in this section. So it's so easy and common to cut them out and make things work, especially when you're doing beats off YouTube or beats and vocal. Lil Skies leaves it in and smartly produces around it. So if you're not getting a good vocal sound right now, this might be the reason. You might just urge and long for that quality that you have, this intimate low end to your voice, like a bunch of other artists do, that is just so unheard of in rap. Here's a great example that revitalizes it. Last thing that every one of these vocals is going to take into account as well is compression to the vocals. We need a very compressed vocals. Every rapper today is so highly compressed.
Rap vocals in your face.
I talked in my most famous YouTube video up until this point about writing as an integral part to making a good vocal sound for whatever genre that you have. In there I talk about how writing is taking the vocal automation of volume and then making sure that you're up and down for any parts that you want in the song. So I have done this on the channel before, but I just wanted to make a little bit of an amendment here, is that when you have writing, it could be a lot simpler. Let's go in to this vocal, click on the automation, add an automation of volume, and then let's do our thing. We have it all the way up right now, so we'll usually come and like a large note like this is going to be chopped by the compressor like right here, and then it won't even touch this bottom line. So I would come down and just literally grab all these automation lines and just drag that word down slightly, and you hear it over again. You get used to it once you do it a bunch of times to make sure that sounds good. Let's hear that.
Carrying my light.
It doesn't sound too crazy to me right now. You just got to pay attention to exactly what it is. I'd go into this note right here and make sure that that one is exactly where it's supposed to be, and make sure that all of these like huge little things are hitting somewhat near where the little stuff is. That will make everything a little bit more even, and the compressors will hit them evenly. Once something is equalized sort of like that, then you could compress it so much more naturally and effectively. Because now you're having compressors work with an already somewhat consistent signal, it won't have to work as hard to get the very subtle things about your voice to come up. For example, take this sound.
Had to smoke all your damn weed, right? Making sure you feel high, cause you're really that guy.
It's this person I happen to have the pleasure of recording. I love this recording sound. But the little intricacies in her voice, how she tails off words at the end and how she starts consonants, just makes it so much better and intimate and necessary to sound professional with. I can't have this vocal come up and come down like it's poking at you. I want it to hug you and be consistent. And that's what we're trying to do with any compression. We're trying to make every single little syllable, grab it and stretch it and push it up more. He does break convention and he stays with overdoing one absolute convention of rap music today, which is cutting 2.5K. Lil Skies does. A lot of artists that are like kind of super big and hip, like Lil Uzi or Migos, they're good examples of people who really cut 2.5K totally out of the vocal. It's a space. Kind of makes you sound like an old head because they used to keep all of that stuff in. They used to leave 2.5K, and a lot of rappers long for it. It feels hollow if you don't have it. So like keeping 2.5K is kind of a frequency that hurts, but you want to play with it. Migos, Lil Uzi, and Lil Skies don't care at all. They cut the heck out of this thing. That's why nowadays it kind of sounds, if you feel the vocal, definitely unnatural and a little hollow or something like that. He keeps this cool, interesting low end to the voice, but he cuts this 2.5 region out, and it's super, super cool. It's such a good example for why I made this video, because if you're not having a good mix with me keeping a medium 2.5K level and cutting all the lows, your voice just might not work with that, and now you have a great example of how it can work. Keeps a lot of 7K in there as well. He's still super bright just like everybody else. He'll keep 7 and 10K, cuts 2.5K, boosts the low end. Keeps the low end how it is at least, which is just like boosting it on top of convention.
For 60 days and 60 nights, I've been going hard off this ecstasy.
Quando Rondo is super, super different than both of what these artists have shown with their autotunes. It is a lot different sounding and a lot different visually as well. We're going to try to pick this note because the speed is so high at this point. It's actually so slow at this point that it isn't discernible like the Lil Skies thing, staircases in pitch. It's just kind of all meshing together. It makes it a little bit more natural, but definitely contributes to the sound. The autotune is this long, almost exactly. This to there, I'm guessing that's about like 60% of the length of here. I don't think though that, like, I kind of know autotune sounds, and the speed to me sounds like it's at least 30 to 60 milliseconds, like 60, 70, 80. They're really solid in the mid-tier speed level, and fast would be how we saw with Ofaygo and Lil Skies, around like 20 or 30. Pretty low too. It's not like anybody else's, and it's probably because he's probably just a good singer, you know, like Lil Skies and Ofaygo aren't bad singers by any means, but like these pitches look pretty dead on, and it doesn't look like too much unnatural shifting occurred. It kind of looks how I've seen when you have a good singer just recording in a melodyne, is that they're kind of on notes. So it's pretty on pitch. 60 to 70% is what I'm gonna guess. And then Quando Rondo, like we kind of said, was a lot similar to Ofaygo, but there's a couple really, really cool things about his vocals that I like. I'm gonna make so many like Instagram little snippets about this section because it's like super. It's interesting. You'll hear it. The ad-libs, how he pans them and reverbs them, I only hear in Travis Scott, and it's super satisfying. He'll have ad-libs which are usually heavily auto-tuned too, because you want to keep that stuff locked in when it's in the back. You don't want to get anything mushy. And then pans them after the reverb, and it sounds so cool. Definitely in this little part of this song. But this is a good point, because I want to talk about everybody's ad-libs. I haven't talked about Lil Skies or Ofaygo's ad-libs yet, and it's a key part to how everybody sounds on here so far. So ad-libs goes like 5 different ways. Is there 5? Let's see. I don't know how many ways there are, but we're gonna see, because I know definitely keeping the ad-libs the exact same as the vocal chain. That's totally one way to do it, and super, super common. Darkening them up and putting them lower, but still kind of up front in the main vocal, so it doesn't get in the way of the main vocal, but you still hear it. Drowning it in reverb, or just utilizing reverb also to darken the vocal, but to set it further back in a space like Quando Rondo here and mainly Travis. Doing the telephone effect to them, I heard that mainly in What's Poppin'. It's not an entire technique for this fifth one, but hey, that's 5. It's panning them and making sure that they're different in the stereo space than the main vocal, and you could do the reverb, the telephone effect, the doubling of the main one, everything, all by panning them in different spots. Everybody does this. So that's it. And if you break one of these 5, then you're not good at producing. Quando Rondo keeps the 4K region sometimes a little bit in vocals too, and it's super unheard of. I don't know why everybody else doesn't do it, but I kind of do. So this is what I mean. The 2.5 region that I was talking about, how I said it kind of hurts our ears. It kind of doesn't, but it does. If you hear a song with a lot of it boosted in a choir like this, that had a lot of high mids, 2.5 to 4K region in it. We didn't perceive that as like ear piercing. Wow, it was loud, and at very, very high volumes, it couldn't help but hurt us. Quando Rondo keeps it in because he knows, or his engineers or whatever knows, that it's going to be played in laptop speakers and phone speakers a bunch, and it's not going to be played so loud. So when you hear that in laptop or phone speakers, a clear range, you stand out from the pack.
And then you're adding brightness, but like,
what's up, girl? What's your type?
Like,
Not gonna lie.
don't love that, you know, like 4K on a vocal, 4500 on a vocal, like, always have been kind of like, it's like it's one of those things where if you look at like the male vocal EQ, it's almost always like a dip there, big one, like it's always like this, you know what I mean? I wouldn't do that. I don't EQ like that. I'd rather do a bunch of smaller changes.
He doesn't go crazy. He doesn't like really, it's not the main part of the vocal around 4K, but I definitely hear it a lot more consistently than I hear a bunch of songs today. Something cool that you could definitely take from Quando Rondo if your vocals aren't sounding the best that they can right now is doing how he does with a bunch of doubles and talking over himself. He'll end with the start of the next one. It crosses over so much. You could have doubles of every single line that you do. It's a writing production thing as well, but if you start with a vocal like this, changing the different vocal sounds as you do this could make a whole section, could make a whole hook for one, but also cut away from an experimental vocal or one you just don't think sounds the best. You could really change and add a dynamic presence to an entire verse by doubling and changing the vocal effects for different verses. Here's this beat that I made. And in the beginning, there's the vocal chop. It goes bop, bop. If you heard only the long sample without these chops that I have in the vocal, it hurt your ears. It's super loud. I boosted it way too much, but I was able to get the presence of that so close, and it's so ear catching because it's cut away so fast that it doesn't have time for you to think about it hurting you. It just feels loud and good. Sticks out from the pack absolutely too, because nobody's that high up there. Do that. It's a Quando Rondo thing that I'm talking about. It's going over yourself at the bar line and you cut out line after line, every single line for a different vocal effect. That'd be pretty cool. Try it out.
Give me reasons we should be complete.
Joji's hardly a rapper, but the vocal is so worth exploring in a video about rappers, because if you don't have good rap vocals right now, it's such a good place to learn from, because maybe you need to do what Joji's doing. 4 quick tips that Joji does that really helps his vocal sound amazing, especially in Slow Dancing in the Dark or something like that. It sounds great. Guarantee that he's not really over compressing. The vocal isn't meant to hug and wrap around your ears at every single second that it's on like a normal rap vocal. It's meant to kind of dance with you. That's a good way of saying it. Like, come in, come out when you want to be expressive and when you don't want to be. Slow Dancing in the Dark, I heard a bunch of cool reverbs, hall or chamber reverbs, and not a lot of delays. Delays make a little bit of like a wash sometimes, and you need like an eighth note delay a lot of the times for rap vocals. But having nothing on there gives it a totally unique vibe. Delay and reverb doesn't have to be the exact same, just reverb totally worked for this Joji track. He kept it really natural. He cut out the low end again. He didn't have too much of the low end presence, made that pretty strict. But his main voice, he definitely boosted around 7, 10K, 15K, all that stuff, but it's around those high mids, those 2,000 to 5,000 areas. I really hear in Joji's voice, which is different than a lot of artists today. And God, just like that choir example that I showed you, just like the old school Eminem records where he used to, every vowel that he said would get really bright in this high mid 2,000 to 5,000 region. Anything like that makes the vocal more expressive. It just limits the cranking of it in a club because it might hurt your ears at that loud of a volume. So if you're trying to not go crazy or play your stuff at the loudest clubs, you're just trying to make like a chill vibe song, you don't have to sound like Ofaygo or Lil Skies or Quando Rondo or something. I was going to swear right there. I can't. It's on my YouTube channel. But you know what I'm saying? Is that like, make that area come out a little bit more. He has a beautiful tone at that volume, and you never, almost never, I never say never on this channel, but almost never want to really boost that section. These bands on the EQ, dude, never go crazy on because they are radioactive. They will absolutely hurt your ears. It'll be actually physically painful if you boost them too much. But if you have that stuff in there and you compress it and you cut the low end out and that stays where it is, go hard. It's expressive and it totally works for this Joji vocal. Mixing vocals is good. Making, just your delays and reverbs sound like they're good. That's all good. Whatever. The final part of this video is not about any rappers, and you need to hear this if you're not getting good vocals. I'm mentioning this in every single rap video that I have. I don't care that it'll be repetitive. You need to hear this 4 times a day, okay? If your vocals aren't on tune, because you're singing notes when you're on your vocals, it isn't going to work. And nobody thinks about that, man. Kendrick is making melodies. Kanye's making melodies. Drake is making melodies. Drake is singing.
But there wasn't a note value in that song on the rap. I guess there was a little bit.
There was, and that was actually on Drake's part a change in rap music. He sang that song.
You're right.
The whole thing.
Right.
It's all melody based,
Right.
distinctly. Every single word is distinctly between the 3 notes of that melody. And nobody was doing that in rap at that stage, you know? That was really early, and that was a chance for us, too. Are people going to judge you for this? You're singing.
Right.
And nobody noticed.
Wow.
Because of the way he delivered it. No one came back like he's singing. Well, no, he was singing the whole
His pitch
song.
is pretty good to begin with.
Well, I used auto-tune on the song. Come on, Dave.
Let's,
That's all to say that it's all notes. It's rapping, but you're still tonal with your rapping, man. Like there's a reason certain flows hit so hard, and that there's only a limited amount of rhythms that you could have because the flow isn't as much about the rhythm entirely as it is about the tone. It's a melody. It's a shape of a change. You could be rapping with a good flow right now, but if it isn't locked on the pitch of your song, it won't hit like you are even saying it, dude. That's why so many people use auto-tune, but you don't want that auto-tune sound a bunch. You definitely can't rely on M Auto Pitch, the free auto-tune, to do it, and Soundtrap might have a free Antares auto-tune plugin. If you're lucky enough to buy auto-tune, go and buy auto-tune, but automated auto-tune, I don't care whatever it is, Waves Tune, Real Time, or Antares, anything that you could buy for any money that's automatic tuning is never going to get the good quality, oh my God, deep, rich precision that a custom pitch changer would. Melodyne. All about free on this channel. You could do a 30-day free trial of Melodyne, by the way, and just keep renewing free trials with new emails if you want to. I'd really recommend doing that because if you have a flow right now, spending time to put that into Melodyne, look at what the key of your song is, and then locking it softly to the grid, being subtle, not going too crazy, but making sure that you could Melodyne like a Drake, man, just like anything that would so help so many people. This entire song, Tell Me About You, that I released with my guys, all Melodyne vocals. They sound almost exactly how they are heard in the recording. I melodined it anyway. I put it in just in case. All right, here's that spreadsheet, by the way, of all of the different suggestions that I've gotten in comments. I put down every single person who ever left a comment about a suggestion of an artist here because I wanted to organize all of them. And if you see your name up here, it's because of that. They're all sorted by the color of the thumbnail that they're going to be. This is a purple video for Lil Skies, Joji, Ofaygo, and Quando Rondo. You know, the green/orange, the blue, and the red days, those are all coming up soon. But if you want me to go further beyond what these are, like more artists, leave it in the comment below. Go do all that stuff. Go because liking the video really helps. You guys obviously know that, but like it really helps the algorithm because like this video is helpful to you, and if it was helpful, because you're staying to the end of the video, if the video was helpful for you, you wanted it to be seen by other people like that. So like the video if you could. I really appreciate you guys again just for watching. I hope you get something out of it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.